I am happy to join with you today in continuing and pursuing our lectures on human rights and media tracking. Well, so I think that we had very fruitful and very insightful and enlightening discussions yesterday about human rights and about media tracking and about all the conventions, the international treaties that have been signed in order to promote and defend and sensitize people to their rights. Today we are going to pursue our lectures. So the lecture of today is entitled Human Rights and International Instruments. We are going to see in details the articles of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. In addition to, we are going also to see and delve into the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant of Economic, Cultural Rights. Good. So I think that we have been talking about the pillars and some very militant people who have struggled in order to set the human rights. And among them, so we have, I think we have seen before Mahatma Gandhi, we have seen before Nelson Mandela, and today I'm very glad, okay, to introduce to you Martin Luther King. So I think you know him very well. So he's also among those pillars and those milestones who have struggled in order to set and to promote, to defend human rights. According to Martin Luther King, now is the time, and this is what I am saying also, now is the time to rise up, and now is the time to be aware of our rights. So now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. So you see, this is an excerpt, an extract from Martin Luther King's very famous speech, I Have a Dream. And of course, you know that that speech was very influential, and of course, it had impacted the process of human rights. And in this excerpt, I have opted for this excerpt because I see that it is very significant and very similar, and it is fraught with symbolic dimensions. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy, and this is the thing that we were discussing. Yes, we have very important conventions, covenants, treaties. That's very nice, but we should render those treaties into our reality to aspire for a better world. So you see, to make justice a reality for all God's children, there is something here very important, is that we are all God's children. So we are all together, and we cannot, as even Martin Luther King says so, or said before years and years ago, we cannot walk alone. We should walk, okay, together in order to change our world for a better thing. So, and in order to set up, okay, justice and to remove racial discrimination and racial injustice. So this is something very influential that we can, for example, get inspired by these persons. And I do believe that these persons and these militants, these civilian okay, human rights people, so we can follow their track and their path in order to get inspired by them, because they have, or they had really influenced the process of history, especially the process of defending and protecting human rights. So this is something very important. So in order to just be in the same context and to shed light on these issues, so the objectives of this lecture will be as follows: distinguish between civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. So these are the things that we are going to see today. The second one is to explore the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, as the foundational international human rights document. So we are going to read and to get very familiar what is. We are going to answer the question what are the articles inside the declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we are going to explore it. We're going also to discuss the content of the international covenant on cultural or civil and political rights. Its scope, we're going to see its scope and its importance in protecting individual freedoms and participatory rights. We're going also to focus and explore the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So these are the basic documents that were, of course, published and dedicated to people all over the world by the United Nations in 1945, and later on, of course, the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. So these are, of course, the basic documents that we are going to explore today. So you have the UDHR and the ICCPR and the ICESCR. So these are the major covenants. We are going also later on to evaluate, because this is something which I do believe very important, to assess, evaluate, to criticize, think, rethink critically the role of internal treaties in promoting human rights, because those are maybe international human rights documents which are, of course, milestones in the history of human rights. But of course, we should evaluate them and we should ask questions: to what extent we can rely on them to promote human rights, to what extent we can rely on them to track human rights violations all over the world. So these are questions that we are going to try and to attempt to answer at the end of this lecture. Well, so let's begin with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was, of course, launched in 1948. And I'm going today to introduce to you some very important key provisions and key concepts of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because this is a very similar, very awesome document. Well, so let's see some very important articles. So of course I have just summarized here, but if you consult the website of the United Nations, so you will see the details. So the first article in this United Nations United Nations Declaration of Human Rights is that you have the right to life. And this is something which is very important. But of course, before launching this document, so the General Assembly in the United States proclaims that this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive they shall strive by teaching and educating, to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of the member of the states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. So you see in Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. What does it mean? It means that they are endowed with reason and consciousness, and they should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So of course, this is just a summary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But of course, when you go and when you read it in detail, so you will see that each article is very explored and is very explained. like Article 2, for example, and the order is very important. The number of articles is very important because I have just opted for some articles. We cannot, of the constraint of time, we cannot deal with all articles in details. But anyway, I have focused on the most important, of course, rights. And you should pay attention to something, that all these rights that derive from something which is very important, which is the right to dignity. Okay, human beings, so they are innately, okay, enjoying the right to dignity. They are dignified persons, so therefore they are, of course, they must enjoy all these rights to affirm and to confirm their dignity. So this is the first thing that is even mentioned in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So you see, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms. This is also set in the declaration, without any distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, for example, religion, political opinion, or any other religious opinion, belief, national, social origin, property. Either you are rich or poor, you should enjoy your right. Birth, for example, or any other social, economic, cultural status. So you enjoy your rights. Furthermore, also, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political or international status of the country. It means that these, I have already explained, that these rights, they are indivisible and they are inalienable. What does it mean? It means that we cannot, for example, select or be selective when it comes to international affairs, for example, not that this country will, for example, benefit from those rights and that country will not. No. So regardless of your country, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your sex or color or any other social, cultural, political status, so you enjoy these rights. So whether you are independent or dependent, so you should enjoy your rights. So article number 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of a person. And this is something very important. The security also, it includes the health security. Okay, so this is, maybe it's general here, and there is something which is very important, and this is just according, this is what I would like to share with you. This is according to my reading of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because sometimes we read it, but we should reflect on it. And this is the thing that students, for example, should learn, is to think things and rethink things critically. So maybe the first right, as I have maybe mentioned beforehand, maybe yesterday in my keynote speech, is that maybe the first right that you didn't attend, and even all the people didn't attend, beside the right to life, okay, which of course was which we got in the womb of our mother's belly. But after this right to life, there is a right which is very important. It's the right to have a proper name, and not any proper name, a very good name. And this right, we didn't attend it, unfortunately speaking, but we have, and it isn't even mentioned. You see, when you read, so sometimes even you read critically, even it isn't mentioned in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this is something very important, that people should have even very good and very relevant, very suitable, okay, proper names. Okay, so you should have a very good name, and this is also your rights. Okay, when you are born, so this is the first thing you get, is a proper name. And okay, just this is between brackets, some people when they grow up, so maybe sometimes they don't like their names and they change it. Okay, they have even the right to change it later on, or they have like a double they add like a double name. Okay, so I think you know these things. Even in Asia, okay, you have maybe 3 names and 2 names sometimes. Yes, okay. So this is just between brackets to illustrate the thing that we are doing. Okay, so number 4. So you have, no one shall be held no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. So this is Article 4 from the Declaration. So this is something which is very important. So of course, this article prohibits 100% slavery or being slave either metaphorically or even directly, explicitly or implicitly. So slavery is totally prohibited. So no one shall be held in slavery at all. Why? Because we have before this article. So if you remember Article number 3, so do we have the right to? Yes. In Article 3, it's the right to
life, liberty,
liberty. Exactly. So we have the right to liberty. This is the third, maybe in the third article. So in Article 4, so of course slavery is prohibited because we enjoy the right to liberty. So we are free. So we enjoy the right to freedom. Good. So Article number 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. And this is also something which is very important. Sometimes even capital punishment is not allowed nowadays in many countries, except in maybe in severe situations. But it's not most countries. They agreed upon this article, and they started, of course, to prohibit capital punishment. So you see, so people, they should enjoy their life in peace, prosperity, and resilience, without any torture, without any inhuman or degrading treatment. Article number 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere. So you should be recognized everywhere, wherever you are, wherever you go, wherever you travel. You are recognized in the first instance as a human being, regardless of your nationality, regardless where you come from. So this is the first thing that you enjoy when you cross the borders of your own country. When you cross the borders of your own country, so the first right you enjoy, in addition to all the other rights, like the right to travel, so you are recognized wherever you are, and whatever your nationality is. So you are very recognized, first of all, as a human being, regardless of your nationality. Yes, so, and at the same time, you are recognized as a person before the law. So of course, I have explained beforehand that people or persons all over the world, so they have their rights. This is something very important, but at the same time they have their duties. So they should, of course, perform their duties toward their families, toward their countries, and toward their communities and their nations, either in small families or in big families like our societies and communities. So we do enjoy some rights, but we do enjoy also we should perform our duties. I have focused here on Article 19 and 23 and Article 18. And this is done for a purpose, because we don't have time to just read all the articles, but later on, so you can dig into this declaration. So Article number 19, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. Please, you underline this right, because we are going to highlight it while dealing with the lecture of mass media and development journalism, and this is something very important. So you have the freedom to express your views, your opinions, to express yourself, either in articles, in poetry, in drama. So you choose the genre that you would like. So you have the whole freedom, to express your opinions, or even this is also related to the freedom of press, to the freedom of journalists also. So we underline these rights because we are going to delve into it later on. Good. Article number 18, so, or 23, so no problem of the order, but just you see the focus of the articles. Everyone has the right to education, and as I said yesterday, so education is one of the most powerful tools. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you are, and the better you the better you get your place in society and within even your communities. And this is something very important. Education is very important because when you are endowed with education and knowledge, so this will facilitate the task in your life. Okay, not just in your academia, but in all in your daily lives and in your in your academic career, for example. So it will be very, very easy. So everyone has the right to education, and you see, for elementary education, this is obligatory and compulsory. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages, but in elementary education shall become compulsory and mandatory. So education, this is something very important. So, and this is a very important right, because if you don't get education, how can you know your rights in the first instance? How can you know so many things all over the world? And how can you get enlightened? Because education, it means enlightenment. So you cannot have a free mindset without education. You cannot criticize without education. You cannot be endowed with critical thinking without education. So this is something very important, and this is even stated in this declaration. Well, article number 18, everyone has the right to freedom, and this is something very important. Freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. This right includes freedom to change religion or belief, not just his. This his, so I underline it because his or her. Okay. So anyway, maybe this is the standard way to write things. So the right to freedom of thought. So you think as you like, but sometimes within the norms and values and the standard of your country. So, but you have that freedom of thought, of conscience, also freedom of religion. So you choose the religion that you feel very comfortable with, and at the same time you have even the freedom to change your religion, maybe if you are not satisfied with the one you are believing in now, maybe. Okay, so these are the articles, the most important indeed articles that are mentioned in the declaration. So we are going to move now to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So as I have said, this covenant, or the declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of course, this declaration has generated many covenants and many international treaties. Why? Because as I have said before, this declaration hasn't the legal enforcement. So therefore, in order to assert it, and in order to make it very easy and very understandable for all countries all over the world, so the United Nations, of course, and the members of the United Nations, so they have agreed upon launching such international covenants in order to decide on, okay, and to decide on the civil and political rights, to clarify, for more clarifications, okay, to clarify the rights, especially talking about civil and political rights. Because as I have said before, when we read, for example, the declaration in general, it's too huge and too large, and it organizes human rights, generally speaking, okay. But if you would like to know maybe the very particularities about your rights, the specificities of your rights, so of course there are many international covenants, many international treaties, many regional and regional conventions that have this purpose of just clarifying the rights. Like, for example, the International Covenant, of course, it clarifies the civil and political rights. Well, so we were talking about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So this International Covenant, it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in the 1966, and it was entered into force, legally speaking, in 1976. So you see, in 1966, it was just the launch, the emergence, but in 1976, it entered into force. Legally binding treaty aimed at ensuring individual freedoms and participatory rights. So this international covenant, this is a very important, of course, covenant because it, as I have said, it clarifies, it makes it very tangible our civil and political rights. So we are going to see in some details, okay, what are the most important articles that we should know in this international covenant on civil and political rights. So the right to life. So this is in Article 6, protection against arbitrary deprivation of life. So you see, in comparison with the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, a little bit when you dig into this international covenant, you see that yes, there is the right to life, but at the same time there is an explanation besides. So there is more explanation in this covenant. What does it mean, right to life? At the same time you have the right to life, but at the same time you are protected against any arbitrary, for example, deprivation of life. So you see, this is more, it is more explained and more clarified, and when you read it, for example, it is very, you just know that all the rights are very tangible. Why they have done this? In order to just remove any misinterpretation of rights, okay, in order not to be sometimes when you read the rights, maybe you will misinterpret them, for example, or misrepresent them. So in order to avoid any misrepresentation or misinterpretations of those rights, so sometimes, especially in this international covenant, so you find the right plus, of course, explanation. You see here also freedom from torture. So we have talked about freedom of torture, but again there is another explanation in Article 7 in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights: prohibition of torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. So you see, freedom from torture, but there is more explanation of this right. There is also the right to fair trial. And this is something also very important. It ensures fairness in legal proceedings and equality before the law. You see, we have already maybe talked about it, but it wasn't not that clear in the United Declarations of Human Rights. But in this international covenant, it is very clear that we have the right, okay, to enjoy fairness in legal proceedings and equality before the law, regardless of your color, your nationality, your sex, for example, your race, your ethnic group. So we are all one, okay, before the law. When it comes to the law, so we should be one, okay, we should enjoy equality before the law. So this is Article 14. Article 19, again, freedom of expression. It is again very explained here and very tangible, guarantees freedom of speech and expressions. So you see, each time there is a covenant or there is an international treaty, for example, or convention, they affirm and they confirm the rights. It's like sometimes you will feel that these rights are repetitive, but they repeat them in order to assert them, in order to affirm them, and in order to avoid any misinterpretation of those rights. Then right to privacy, and this is something very important in Article 17, protection from arbitrary interference in personal matters. And this is something very important even nowadays, for example, because we have this development, this very rapid and fast development in technology, in social media. Sometimes people can get into your account, for example. They can even publish your personal information and so on and so forth. And this right is very important, especially nowadays in this technological era. Well, so these are just grosso modo the major articles that are mentioned in the International Covenant on civil and political rights. Now there is the second very important international covenant, which is about, and it guarantees economic, social, and cultural rights. And this covenant, of course, it was adopted in 1966. And it came into force in 1976 alongside, okay, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And it focuses on securing social well-being and economic stability for individuals, economic stability, social stability, and cultural stability for every person and for all individuals wherever they are. So and these rights, they are very important. This covenant, it's very important. It is very seminal. Why? Because it's, again, it explains and it sheds more light on economic, social, and cultural rights. We're going to see some of those rights that are mentioned in this international covenant. So you see, it's the right to work. This is in Article 6. Please pay attention because the number of articles is very important. It's the right to earn a livelihood in fair conditions. This is something very important. So you have the right to work, the right to earn a salary, a wage salary, and the right to just enjoy a well-being, to enjoy a welfare life. So this is rights in Article number 6. A right to social security in Article number 9, it ensures financial and social protection. So, as you see, this covenant clarifies to what extent we enjoy or we should enjoy our financial and social stability. Because if you are not stable, financially speaking, and culturally speaking, socially, politically speaking, so you cannot give about it. We talk about it in its inclusive, okay, way. The family, it means the father, the mother, and kids, okay, and children. Right to health, and in Article 12, right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. And of course, when you enjoy the right to health security is something very important, especially today, with diseases and like the era that we all lived before coronavirus pandemic era. So we have noticed to what extent this health security is very important nowadays. So this right to health, of course, will endow people with the psychological, physical, and mental stability. We have talked about financial stability, cultural stability, social stability. All these things, they are very important in society. But believe me, you cannot enjoy and you cannot feel even your financial stability if you are not healthy. So health security, this is something crucial in life. And you cannot enjoy anything in life if you are not a healthy person and if you don't have this right to health security. So health security, this is something very important in this era. So right to education, again. So all the time we talk about the most powerful tool in our societies and in the whole world is education. So this rights, again, you see, even in the United Nations Declaration, we have this all the time, this right to education. Why? Because it is very important. Even in the International Covenant, civil and political rights, we have the right to education, because you cannot do anything without this right. It's crucial. It guarantees access to education, promoting equal opportunities, even at the university, at the faculties, for example, in primary, secondary schools. So you should be very, very equal, and you should have equal opportunities to get access to education. So those rights, they are very, very, very important. So, of course, what we should know here is that these covenants, for example, so they complement. Sorry. So you see here this International Covenant on Civil Political Rights. It is intertwined with the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. We cannot separate them. We talked about indivisibility, interdependency. So those covenants, so they are interdependent and they are intertwined. We cannot separate one from the other. And they belong, all of them, they belong to the international, to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why? Because both of them, they acknowledge that full human dignity, and of course this full human dignity, in order to achieve it, of course we should enjoy both civil, political, and economic social rights. So this is something very, very important. If, for example, the ICCPR deals with immediate obligations and focuses on protecting freedoms and participatory rights, so the other, for example, covenant like the the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. So it emphasizes progressive realization of the rights tied to economic, social, and cultural conditions. So those covenants, so they are very, very important, and they are very interdependent. So this is something very, very important to know, that this, for example, covenant complements the other. So they are complementary, and they are interdependent and intertwined. Good. So I think that, just to conclude, so I think that we have been acquainted to the most important articles in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and what has been generated from that declaration, those two very important, very basic covenants, okay, that again confirms, okay, or that confirm to us and assert to us fundamental human rights. So, in order to just maybe, if you would like to get deeper into these issues, so these are the references from which I have taken or I have based my lectures. So you can go to these websites in order to dig into the issue of human rights, and to just maybe get familiar with our fundamental human rights. So before ending, I would like you to watch a video about human rights, how they are natural rights, how they are rendered human rights, and then what the challenges that people are facing today. Okay, so there are many challenges. Though, for example, we have those covenants, those international treaties, but we are facing many challenges, and we are just seeking to solve, okay, those challenges and find resolutions and solutions to them. Well, so I will invite you to watch this video.
Under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers. Free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent. Who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
Okay, so I think that the video is very clear. So I will add another thing by Martin Luther King. He says that a right delayed is a right denied. So you see what a right delayed is a right denied. Okay, so this is something very, very important. So you see in this video, for example, if you would like to comment on it. So yes, there are treaties, conventions, but sometimes we just feel them that they are just words on a single page, and they are not manifested on our reality. And this is something that disappoints many people all over the world. But of course we should follow the path of those militant people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and many Mahatma Gandhi, and many other people, for example, who have influenced, of course, the process of human rights and the history of the development of human rights.